Hey guys, welcome to your very first set of notes in the 2019-2020 school year. So today we prepped your composition notebooks in class. We titled and we glued down the papers we were going to do. And so now what we're going to do is take notes. So just a reminder, on the left side is the adding. On the right side is the subtracting. If you made an error, like I did the first time, gently take it out and replace so that the positive is on the left, the adding, and the negative, the subtracting, is on the right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next screen, and we are going to go ahead and fill this out. So, again, 2 pages. We should have plenty of room. Everything should take place on that white sheet of paper. So, let's talk about adding. Oops, to an interesting color. To add decimals, it says line up blank. Oh, well, it wouldn't make sense if I added tenths to hundredths. So in order to add tenths to tenths, what's going to help me is if I line up the decimal points. So I'm going to line up decimal points. So what you are going to notice, I am going to use color. And again, basically the rule when we're taking notes is you write whatever I write. Okay, not all the notes are going to be prescripted like this. A lot of times you're just going to be writing on the paper itself. Sometimes I'll give you a handout for examples. Sometimes we'll do foldables. We'll just have to see how it goes. All right. Then what do we do? Well, once I've got everything lined up, I'm going to go ahead and add digits. In the same, well, since I've lined them up, they're all going to be in the same place value position. Same place value position. Now, in order to know if my answer sounds reasonable, because we can really mess up super easily when we're doing anything with decimals, a good thing to do is to estimate first. So estimate first is always a good idea. So in your homework, when you or in your practice tomorrow in class, what you're going to do is you're going to start with the problem the way it's written, and then you're going to rewrite it the way that you would need to in order to solve it. So in order to solve it, we would end up changing from being written horizontally to being written vertically. But before we do that, let's go ahead and let's estimate these problems. So there's a couple ways to do estimation. You can estimate both numbers to their highest place value column, or you could round each of them to the nearest whole number. So I'm going to do it that way. So I'm going to take 54.7 and 21.4. So I'm going to round each one to the nearest whole number. So that would be the ones. And then that tells me to look at the value to the right of where I want to round, and it's going to tell me what to do. So remember, the rule is if the number to the right of where you're rounding is 5 or higher, your number that you've underlined that you want to round to is going to go up by 1. If the number to the right of where you want to round is 4 or less, then you're not going to change the number that's in the column you want to round. So for us, we would say 54.7. 7 is going to make 4 go up to 5, so we're going to get 55. And then 4 is not going to change the 1, so we're going to get a 21. So we get 6, we get 7. Now, some people feel that estimation should always be one number and a bunch of zeros. Okay, so we could do that as well. If in that case, so I'm going to come back here, I would round to the nearest or the greatest place value column. Okay, which means then I would look towards the right here to round. So if I did that, 4 is not going to change 5, so that would round up to 50, and 1's not going to change 2, so that would be 20, and if I added those, I would get 70. So my answer is somewhere in the 70 range, okay? That's going to help, especially when I get into multiplication or division. That's going to help me with my answers. All right, so now let's go figure out what the actual. So that was your estimated answer. So let's talk about the actual. So remember what we wrote. In order to add the numbers, we're going to line them up by the decimal point. So I'm going to take the first number, and then it's the second one who's going to get round or lined up using its decimal point. So we have 21.4, 21 and 4/10. So now I'm going to add. All right, now when I add the digits, guess what happens? I'm going to go ahead and bring the decimal point down. I know some people like to do it after they've done the math, but sometimes people forget. So I always take care of those little things first. So bring the decimal point and then I add. 7 plus 4 is 11. 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. 5 plus 2 is 7. So I get my answer to be 76.1, which is in the 70s and very close to 76. So I box up that answer. And there I go. Now notice math isn't all that neat. We've got a lot of stuff going on, and that's okay. I don't mind that. All right, so let's estimate again. And let's do our two numbers, 14.2 and 23.5. So really the main thing we're trying to do here is to figure out in the ballpark what is the answer going to be. Okay, so let's do option 2. Let's round to the highest place value. And let's see. I ran myself a little bit out of room here, didn't I? 4 is not big enough to change the 1, so that would give me about 10. And again, we can use even these symbols to say approximately. And then on the second guy, let's see, we want to round to the nearest whole number. And 3 is not large enough to change the 2, so he just is going to stay at about 20. So if I add those together, I'm going to get an answer of about 30. So there's my estimation, is I expect my answer to be somewhere near 30, okay? Is it going to be less than 30 or greater than 30? Well, I can tell I rounded both of my numbers down, so that means my actual answer is going to be above 30. So what do I mean by rounding down? 14.2 rounded to 10. 23.5 rounded to 20. But again, it was a lot easier for me to add these numbers quickly than it would have been if I rounded to the nearest 10 or nearest whole number, and I would have had 14 plus 24, and then I'd go from there. All right, so let's do the actual. So we start with the first number. We just write him 14.2. And then we're going to add to that the 23.5. So again, key, all place value columns line up. The tens line, the ones line, and the tenths line up. So we're going to go ahead and bring the decimal point down so we don't forget about it. 2 plus 5 is 7. 4 plus 3 is 7. 1 plus 2 is 3. So 37.7 is in the neighborhood of 30. That works for me. All right, one last question. So let's start with estimation. And I'm kind of liking this just rounding. I know it seems like a little lazy, but let's just go ahead and estimate by rounding to the nearest 10, so the largest place value column, make the math simple. So we're going to round to these columns. The 7 and the 3 are going to be the ones in charge. 7 is large enough to round up 1 to 2, so that's going to be 20. So remember, everything after where you round becomes zeros. And again, we don't need the decimals because we're just rounding to whole numbers. The 3 is not large enough to change the 3, so we have a 30, and we add up and we get 50. So my answer should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50. Now what's interesting is I rounded 17.3 up to 20, and I rounded 33.5 down to 30, so my answer should be fairly close to 50 if I've done this right. So let's see the actual. So again, remember the mantra is, whatever I write, you write. The benefit of listening is like you get the same feeling you would if you were in class during a lecture. So we're going to add up, bring that decimal point down. 3 plus 5 is 8. 7 plus 3 is 10. We get 3, 4, 5, and we get 50.8. So my thoughts about my answer being really close to 50 were pretty accurate. So that's it. You know, I am going to change one word because it doesn't quite sound right, so I'm going to erase it. It's not bad what I've done. I just have kind of grammatically incorrect. So I'm going to change that instead of estimate to estimating first. That sounds a little better. Okay, so let's go ahead, flip over to the next side, not really flip, but switch, and we're going to go ahead and talk about subtracting. Not a heck of a lot of difference from adding decimals other than the operation itself. So, to subtract decimals, line up the decimal points, right? So again, I like to use colors to make things stand out, though I know some of you are saying, brown doesn't really stand out, Ms. Rosner. You're right, but I all of a sudden had this feeling of fall, and I like the brown and the orange together. You may need to, now I'm going to teach you a fancy word. I love this word, annex. An annex is like an addition. So annex allows us to add on without changing the value. So we can add zeros after a decimal point, and it's not going to change the value of the number whatsoever. And we do that so that we can subtract correctly. Okay? And then we're going to subtract digits. Sorry, the noise you're hearing is Tiana. She's come in here. You're going to subtract digits in the same place value column, or same place value position. Okay. Oh, sorry, wrong. That doesn't go there. I cheated. Position goes there. And that's my dog Lucy, if you heard the bark. Okay. And estimating first. Is always a good idea. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the estimating. And again, let's do it to the nearest whole number just to make our math simple. So we're going to take 9.543 and 3.671, and we're going to round to the nearest whole number. That way we have no digits after the decimal point we have to worry about. So we want to round to the ones column, and those are the two values that are going to tell us what to do. So let's see, 5 is big enough to round 9 up, and it rounds up to a 10. And then 6 is big enough to round 3 up to a 4. Now remember, we're subtracting on this page, so if I subtract, my answer is about 6. So in both cases, I rounded up, so I think my actual answer is going to be a little bit less than 6. Okay, so let's go for it with the actual. And we've got 9.543, and we need to subtract this 3.671. So we've lined up decimal points. And to actually read these correctly, 9 and, that's how we read a decimal point, and 543 thousandths. So we're tenths, hundredths, thousandths, third column over. So it's 3 and 671 thousandths. So that lisping at the end is what happens when we have decimal values. Okay, so I bring my decimal point down and we just do subtraction. 3 take away 1, 2. 4 take away 7, I'm not going to be able to do, so I'm going to rename. I'm going to take away 1/10 and turn it into 10 hundredths, making that 14 at the top. So 14 take away 7 is 7. 4 take away 6 I can't do, so I'm going to rename. I'm going to take away 1 whole and turn it into 10 tenths. I have 14 take away 6 is 8, and then 8 take away 3 is 5. So just as predicted, I was going to get a number that was going to be slightly under 6. So I box it up, make it easier for me to grade. Okay, let's keep going. Let's do another estimation. So we've got 50.3, and we've got 39.81. So again, just to make it easier for us, we're going to go ahead and round to the nearest, or to the largest place value column, which in this case is the tens. And the ones digit is going to help us with the rounding. So interesting, 0 can't change 5, so it stays as 5, so we have 50. And 9 is big enough to change the 3 up to 4, so that's going to give us 40. So if we subtract, we get about 10. Okay, so let's see, we did round up, so it's going to be really close to 10, I think. Yeah, we only rounded up a titch on the 39, so let's do our actual. And we're going to get 50.3, and we're going to subtract 39.81. So this is one of those situations where notice the 1 in the hundredths column on the bottom number has nobody above it. We got to put something there because the temptation is to just bring the 1 down, and that's not actually doing subtraction. You can't take 1 from nothing. You got to have a 0 up there so that if we need to rename, we can get some good values. So that's what we're going to end up doing. We'll bring the decimal point straight down. I can't do 0 take away 1, so I'm going to rename, take 1 of the tenths, turn it into 10 hundredths. So now I have 10 take away 1 is 9. 2 take away 8 I can't do, so I'm going to go to the ones column, but there's nothing there. So I have to go to the 5. So look what happens. I take 110, and first I'm going to change it into 10 ones. But now I need to take 1 of the ones, which leaves me with 9, and I'm going to turn it into 10 tenths. So now I have 12 tenths on that other number. All right, keep going with the subtraction. 12 take away 8 is 4. 9 take away 9 is 0. 4 take away 3 is 1. So like I said, I thought the answer was going to be super close to 10, and that's pretty close to 10. All right, one more problem, and then we'll be done. So we have 14, and we have 9.092. Okay, so again, let's round to the nearest, the highest place value on these numbers. So I'm going to round to the nearest 10 on the first one and to the whole number on the second guy. And then 4 is going to tell me what to do, and 0 is going to tell me what to do. 4 can't change the 1, so that's going to keep it at 1. So we're going to round 14 down to about 10. 0 is not going to change 9, so it's going to stay 9. So we're going to, again, round down. So we get the answer is 1. Yeah. So that's a pretty big thing. Makes you wonder if maybe that's not the best estimate. So in this case, I'm going to say, you know what? I don't like that. That doesn't seem good to me. So instead of doing this, I'm just going to keep 1414. I'm going to round 9.092 or 9 and 92 thousandths to 9. So then when I subtract, I get 5. Yeah, that looks a little bit more reasonable. So I'm going to throw out that whole estimation because sometimes an estimate doesn't look right, and that's because we estimated too much. So here's my actual. And we've got 14, and we want to subtract 9. Now, how do I line up? 14 doesn't have a decimal point. Oh, I can hear you right now. It's a whole number. So we'll put a decimal point there. That'll help with the lining up. And then what I'll be able to do is I have 3 digits after the decimal, so I'm going to have to, let me put red. I'm going to add 3 zeros. All right, so this is going to do a lot of renaming. Don't have enough to take away the thousandths, so I go to the hundredths. Nothing there. Go to the tenths. Nothing there. It's finally in the whole numbers that I find something. So I'm going to take away 1 whole. First, he's going to become 10 tenths. Take away 1/10. That's going to give me 10 hundredths. Take away 1/100th is going to give me 10 thousandths. Now I can subtract. So 10 take away 2 is 8. 9 take away 9 is 0. 9 take away 0 is 9. Oops, I forgot to bring the decimal point down straight away. And then this isn't a 3. Remember, the 1 is here, so it's 13. And 13 take away 9 is 4. So that answer is actually pretty close to 5. And there you go. All right, good luck tonight, guys.